in a feast of trendy music and electrifying performances. Now, the whole world enjoys it together.
The White House says U.S. President Donald Trump believes NATO was tested and they failed. This comes as President Trump is reportedly considering a plan to move some U.S. troops from NATO member countries, deemed unhelpful to those that were more supportive. Israel launched its largest coordinated strike on Lebanon since conflict with Iran began last month. Iran accused the U.S. and Israel of violating parts of a framework to end the war, while Israel said it still has more objectives to achieve and that it remains ready to resume military operations at any time. North Korea said it tested a short-range ballistic missile equipped with a cluster bomb warhead over 3 days from Monday to Wednesday. It claimed the test confirmed that the missile can devastate a large target area with extremely high intensity. Hello and thanks for joining us on Arirang News. We begin today in the United States. The Trump administration is ramping up criticism of NATO allies, saying they failed during the Iran conflict while weighing troop redeployment and pushing ahead with ceasefire talks with Tehran. Our Kim Bo-kyung starts us off. The Trump administration has again expressed dissatisfaction with NATO for a passive response by members to the conflict with Iran. White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt said on Wednesday that President Trump believes NATO was tested and they failed.
They were tested and they failed. And I would add it's quite sad that NATO turned their backs on the American people over the course of the last 6 weeks when it's the American people who have been funding their defense.
Leavitt's remarks align with a Wall Street Journal report that said Trump is considering a plan to punish some members of the NATO alliance, perhaps by moving some U.S. troops from member countries deemed unhelpful to those that were more supportive. The plan, although in early stages, is believed to have gained support among senior officials in recent weeks. The Trump administration is also reportedly considering closing at least one U.S. military base in Europe, perhaps in Spain or Germany. Leavitt also announced that President Trump is dispatching a negotiating team led by the Vice President J.D. Vance, Special Envoy Steve Witkoff, and his son-in-law Jared Kushner to Islamabad for talks this weekend.
The first round of those talks will take place on Saturday morning local time, and we look forward to those in-person meetings.
On Israeli attacks on Lebanon following the ceasefire announcement, the U.S. Vice President said Wednesday that the U.S. did not agree to include Lebanon, despite Tehran saying otherwise.
We never made that promise. We never indicated that was going to be the case. What we said is that the ceasefire would be focused on Iran, and the ceasefire would be focused on America's allies, both Israel and the Gulf Arab states.
Trump, speaking to PBS News, said Lebanon is not part of the ceasefire agreement because of Hezbollah, calling it a separate skirmish that will get taken care of. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News. A fragile ceasefire between the United States and Iran is under pressure as Iran moves to close the Strait of Hormuz and Israel intensifies strikes in Lebanon. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu warns military action could resume at any moment as rising tensions cast doubt over upcoming negotiations. Our Lee Seung-jae has more.
A fragile ceasefire between the United States and Iran is showing signs of strain as tensions escalate across the Middle East. Iranian state media said Wednesday that Tehran has closed the Strait of Hormuz in response to Israel's continued military operations in Lebanon. However, both Washington and Tel Aviv maintain that the ceasefire agreement does not cover Lebanon, where Israel says it is targeting Hezbollah. On Wednesday, Israel launched its largest coordinated strike on Lebanon since fighting began last month. Lebanon's civil defense says at least 254 people were killed in the strikes, including 91 in the capital Beirut. Residents report that some attacks came without prior evacuation warnings.
We are living in a nightmare, so I'm afraid today to sleep. So maybe it will happen this the second time. Who's gonna? I don't know. I will pray and then sleep. That's it.
Meanwhile, Iranian officials accused the United States of violating key provisions of a 10-point proposal meant to guide upcoming negotiations. Tehran claims the first breach involves failure to uphold ceasefire conditions related to Lebanon. The second, it says, was a U.S. drone entering Iranian airspace, which was later shot down in Fars province. And the third concerns what Iran calls the denial of its right to uranium enrichment, a point included in the proposed framework. Iran warns these violations are undermining trust before talks even begin. For its part, Israel says it is complying with the ceasefire with Iran, but remains ready to resume military operations at any time. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says Israel still has more objectives to achieve and warned that fighting could restart at any moment.
A temporary 2-week ceasefire between the United States and Iran went into effect tonight in full coordination with Israel. No, they did not surprise us at the last minute. Now I want to emphasize this is not the end of the campaign. This is a stop on the way to achieving all our goals.
He also stated that Iran's enriched uranium would be removed either through an agreement or by force. 이승재, Arirang News.
The South Korean government is set to announce the third round of price cap measures on fuel at 7 p.m. on Thursday. According to Finance Minister Koo Yoon-chul, the new price cap will take effect from midnight. He went on to say that the government will make every effort to ease the financial burden on people by improving distribution structures for essential goods, while establishing a fair market order and addressing difficulties faced by businesses. South Korea imposed a cap on domestic fuel prices in mid-March to combat a spike in energy costs stemming from the conflict in the Middle East. And also on the local front, as fuel costs continue to rise, President Lee Jae-myung on Wednesday visited a local logistics hub and met truck drivers to hear about some of the problems they have been facing. Our top office correspondent Yoon Jung-min reports.
Appearing in a yellow civil defense uniform, the president went out into the field on Wednesday to tour a local freight terminal located just south of the capital. As fuel costs continue to rise, President Lee Jae-myung met truck drivers and logistics companies.
중동 전쟁 때문에 유가 상승폭이 크고 그것 때문에 특히 수송업계, 화물 수송업계 어려움이 많은 것 같습니다. 다들 어려우시죠?
The meeting was organized to hear about the hardships of businesses affected by the closure of the Strait of Hormuz, a crucial waterway for global oil supply.
The government's decision to expand fuel-linked subsidies have been a great help, but the amount of support is capped. If the price exceeds the ceiling, like 2001 per liter, we have to bear the rest of the costs.
Revisions are in the works at the National Assembly to expand the scope of support, and Lee hopes for its swift approval. Also discussed was switching to electric vehicles in the long term.
Diesel vehicles will always cause environment problems, and we expect sharp demand for electric cars and the such like, but we doubt whether truck drivers can afford those expensive cars. The government needs to review relevant subsidies.
경유, 휘발유 뭐 이런 거보다는 이제 전기로 전체적으로 전환을 해야 되긴 한데, 하여튼 그 문제는 저희도 좀 속도를 좀 내려고 하고 있어요.
Other than a fuel price cap, the authorities plan to exempt certain highway toll fees at night and temporarily allow certain truck drivers to delay their debt repayments. Yoon Jung-min, Arirang News.
And President Lee Jae-myung says South Korea needs to overhaul its economic structure. Chairing the first National Economic Advisory Council meeting under his administration on Thursday, Lee said the war in the Middle East has posed a serious threat to the economy, but has also created an opportunity for change. The meeting focused on the need to reduce South Korea's heavy dependence on fossil fuels and diversify energy supply routes away from the Middle East. The National Economic Advisory Council, established in 1999, is a presidential advisory body on economic policy. North Korea says it has test-fired a short-range ballistic missile, the Hwasong-11 Ka, which is equipped with a cluster bomb warhead. According to the Korean Central News Agency on Thursday, testing took place over 3 days from Monday to Wednesday. It said that the test confirmed that the missile can devastate a target area of 6.5 to 7 hectares with extremely high intensity. South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff detected the firing of multiple short-range ballistic missiles into the East Sea from the North Korea's Wonsan area at around 8:50 a.m. on Wednesday, followed by another launch at approximately 2:20 p.m. And as ongoing conflicts across the world generate questions about the future of America's security commitment and relationship with its allies, an annual conference in Seoul is exploring how countries can move forward. Our correspondent Oh Soo-young has the details.
America's relationship with its Indo-Pacific allies should be strengthened collectively by building capabilities together, with US nuclear deterrence reinforced in the face of ever-present challenges. That's according to officials and experts, including former Japanese Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba, speaking at the annual Asan Plenum in Seoul.
The key theme here is alliance modernization. Since the end of World War II, Washington has been the backbone of global security. But with US interests and priorities shifting, allies are under growing pressure to adapt.
Ishiba called for a collective Indo-Pacific approach, strengthening the credibility of America's nuclear deterrence, amid concerns that the second Trump administration is aiming to reduce America's role while shifting burdens and responsibilities to its allies.
If we are to reinforce that credibility of nuclear deterrence, we should urgently establish a standing framework, not only bilaterally, but trilaterally among Japan, the US, and the Republic of Korea as well.
He also said Seoul and Tokyo can take the lead in multilateral regional efforts, including the formation of an Asian version of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization between US treaty allies. Asan Chairman Chung Mong-jun also called for an Asian NATO, along with the redeployment of several dozen US tactical nuclear weapons to deter against North Korea's growing nuclear capabilities and evolving global threats.
The United States must carry the indispensable role of anchoring the global alliance system against the axis of revisionist powers. New threats are also emerging in cyber, space, supply chains, and emerging technologies. These developments require alliances to rethink obligations and expectations.
Former US Assistant Secretary of Defense for Indo-Pacific Security Randall Shriver noted naval shipbuilding cooperation with Korea as one key example.
If we were to rely only on our own capacity for production, we just couldn't keep pace. We likely won't match China in numbers, but through cooperation with partners and allies, the hope is we can field a very credible naval force for the purposes of deterrence and upholding the free and open order in the Indo-Pacific.
The plenum saw some 50 global policy officials and experts exploring alliance modernization across military, economic, and technological dimensions. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
K-pop superstar BTS begins its Arirang World Tour on Thursday at Goyang Stadium, kicking off what's expected to be the largest tour in K-pop history. According to Big Hit Music, the group will perform 85 shows across 34 cities worldwide, including in the United States, Japan, and Europe. The tour will feature stadium and dome venues with a 360-degree stage, aiming to attract record-breaking audiences. So far, 46 shows have already sold out. Promoter Live Nation says BTS has sold out about 2.4 million tickets for 41 shows in North America and Europe alone. The Korean International Broadcasting Foundation, or Arirang TV, is marking its 30th anniversary this year. A commemorative ceremony took place at the network's headquarters in Seoul, bringing together staff and key guests to celebrate 3 decades of global broadcasting. Founded in 1996, Arirang has grown into a major international broadcaster, reaching audiences in around 140 countries. Organizers say the anniversary event not only reflected on the network's achievements over the past 30 years, but also outlined its vision for the future, highlighting new programs and its evolving role in promoting Korean culture globally.
Global K-pop sensation BTS also received a merit award at the ceremony. Construction of the world's tallest sea bridge observatory, the Sky 184, located on Incheon's Cheongna Sky Bridge, has been completed. When a trial run is finished, it will be open to the public at the end of April. Our Kim Sa-young reports.
An observatory standing 184 meters above sea level has been built on the top of the Cheongna Sky Bridge. It has been recognized by Guinness World Records as the world's tallest observatory on a sea bridge. Following the bridge's opening in January, it is now almost ready to welcome visitors. The Arch Walk is a tourist attraction where visitors wearing safety harnesses walk along the wall of the observatory at the top of the bridge tower. It offers breathtaking views of the sea and the city skyline through 360 degrees. Admission fee to the observatory is 15,000 won, and the Arch Walk costs 60,000 won. Residents of Incheon receive a 50% discount. Below the top observatory is a second, lower observatory, a large-scale media arts showroom, and a seaside cinema. These facilities can be accessed through a pedestrian deck over the water, and visitors can enjoy them for free. Incheon plans to connect the Cheongna Sky Bridge Observatory with various tourism programs, including tours of Incheon International Airport, the Incheon City Tour, and a bicycle trail tour.
The Sky Bridge has been listed in the Guinness World Records, and we plan to further develop it into an outstanding tourist attraction not only for Incheon residents, but also for visitors from overseas.
Kim Sa-young, Arirang News.
This is The World Now, bringing you everything you need to know from around the globe. Iran is reportedly demanding that shipping companies pay tolls in cryptocurrency at $1 per barrel of oil before allowing tankers to transit the Strait of Hormuz. Iran's Oil Exporters Union said each vessel must submit cargo details by email, after which authorities will assess the ship and issue a payment demand in digital currency. Vessels attempting to pass without prior approval received radio warnings on Wednesday that they would face military strikes. The White House rejected the toll demand outright, saying Trump wants the strait opened, quote, immediately and without any restrictions. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth said the strait is open, but ship tracking data show only 2 bulk carriers have transited since the ceasefire took effect, while an estimated 300 to 400 vessels remain stranded in the Gulf. Legal experts warn that any toll arrangement would violate international maritime law, setting a precedent with consequences well beyond the Strait of Hormuz. The first round of ceasefire negotiations is set for Saturday in Islamabad, led by Vice President J.D. Vance, Special Envoy Steve Witkoff, and Jared Kushner. Minutes from the Fed's March meeting released on Wednesday showed most policymakers still expected to lower rates at some point this year, but flagged the Iran war's impact on inflation and labor market as key uncertainties. Some officials said they needed to stay open to rate hikes if inflation remained elevated. Oil prices remain roughly 30% above pre-war levels, despite a sharp drop following the ceasefire. Interest rate futures on Wednesday put the odds of a Fed rate cut by year-end at roughly 1 in 4. That's a significant shift from before the ceasefire, when traders had begun pricing in the possibility of a hike. San Francisco Fed President Mary Daly said on Wednesday that it was too early to judge how the conflict and energy costs would ultimately shape the U.S. economy, a view that captures where the Fed stands as a whole. In Rio de Janeiro's Olympic Park, a fire at the velodrome in the early hours of Wednesday gutted the ceiling of the arena before firefighters brought the blaze under control. No injuries were reported. 80 firefighters and 20 fire trucks responded to the scene. The building houses the Olympic Museum, which holds artifacts including the original Olympic torch and medals from the 2016 Rio Games. The city's mayor said both the velodrome and the museum sustained minimal damage. The velodrome previously suffered 2 separate fires in 2017. A Los Angeles federal court on Wednesday sentenced drug dealer Jasveen Sangha to 15 years in prison for her role in the 2023 death of Friends actor Matthew Perry. It is the longest sentence handed down so far in the case. Sangha pleaded guilty to 5 felony drug counts, including distributing the ketamine that ultimately killed Perry at his Los Angeles home at age 54. The court found that the so-called ketamine queen had continued selling illegal drugs for 6 months after Perry's death, a factor the judge cited in rejecting leniency arguments from the defense. Chu Ji-hyun, Arirang News.
A windy, rain-soaked day is ahead across the country. Heavy rain that started on Jeju and the southern regions are spreading nationwide, and this system will be quite intense for spring. Mountainous regions in Jeju could see over 250 millimeters. Central regions, including here in the capital, might get 20 to 60 millimeters. But it's not just the rain. Strong winds will also be a concern. Please stay cautious of potential damage and falling objects. And there will be a drop in readings due to that rain and wind. Seoul will be getting up to just 12 degrees Celsius. Daejeon, Gyeongju, Busan will be getting up to 15 degrees. Jeju makes it to 20 degrees with a strong wind advisory issued as well. Then rain will ease by Friday afternoon, followed by a return to warmer spring conditions over the weekend. However, another rain system is expected to affect southern regions early next week.
That's all we have for today's noon edition of Arirang News. Thank you for watching. We'll be back at 5 p.m. Korea time. Stay tuned.
어렸을 때부터 어머니가 미술학원을 운영을 하셨어요. 그래서 거기 가서 놀고 하다 보니까 자연스럽게 미술을 접하게 됐고, 저는 그리고 만드는 것 중에 만드는 게 더 재밌었어요. 그래서 이제 도요카 입학해서 다양한 재료들을 경험을 해봤지만 그 중에서도 물레성형 기법에 굉장히 매료가 됐고, 이 기법을 평생 하면서 하면 행복하겠다는 생각이 들어서 도자기를 계속 하게 되었습니다. 작업하시는 분들은 다들 공감을 하시겠지만 사실 정답이 없잖아요. 그래서 항상 불안하고 제가 제대로 된 길을 가고 있는지에 대한 이런 마음이 엄청 큰데, 프란치라는 좀 어떻게 보면 저한테는 되게 큰 상이었거든요. 제가 잘하고 있다고 도닥여주고 제대로 길을 가고 있다고 확신을 주는 것 같아서 저한테는 되게 의미 있는, 지금까지 작업을 할 수 있는 원동력이기도 했고요. 저는 옛날에 기 형태들을 많이 참고하는 편인 것 같고요. 엄청나게 섬세한 기법들을 통해서 장식이 되어 있거든요. 저는 그런 장식들을 일부분씩 뜯어와서 그걸 제만의 방식대로 입체화시킵니다. 원래는 기라는 형태 자체가 실제로 사용하기 위해서 만들어졌잖아요. 그 공간을 저는 어떻게 하면 더 흥미롭게 보여줄 수 있을까? 그래서 제가 집중했던 부분이 창인데요. 건축에서도 창을 내부와 외부를 잇는 통로, 매개체라고 많이들 이야기를 하잖아요. 저는 그 부분에서 영감을 받아서 그 창의 의미를 형태에 접목시키게 되었습니다. 그래서 요즘에는 이제 설치 작업도 많이 하는 것 같아요.